Welcome. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I always say this first. Thank you for allocating the time. I know it's Friday at 3 o'clock for everybody that doesn't know what time it is because there's no telling when I release this. But yeah, it's Friday at 3 o'clock, and you've made the drive out to the studio. So I appreciate that. It says a lot about you and your business and that you're not scared of traffic, I guess. But thanks for coming. Burn the ship. Our goal always is to connect professionals with entrepreneurs that can help these people go all in on their business. We want to learn from people that have walked the walk and talked the talk and been through all the things that we know that small business owners experience. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, introduce your business, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Megan Kranzler. I own Ridley Studios, based in Savannah, Georgia. So I work primarily with small businesses. I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I specialize in visual and physical branding for small businesses, primarily in the product and retail spaces. And what that means for people who have no idea what those terms are, visual branding is logo design, but it's a lot more than just a logo.
Oh, for sure.
It's the whole visual identity, so logo, color palette, fonts that pair with it, extra graphic elements, brand guidelines, the whole package. And then on the physical side, it's packaging design, branded spaces for retail environments, including like signage and storefront graphics, business cards, merch, really anything tangible.
Sure.
That's going to help you promote and grow your business.
Oh, yeah. And so I want to know kind of a story, like how you kind of learned what you know and how you kind of got where you are now, running your own business, kind of acquiring your own clients, all of those things. But I think something important to talk about, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, but I think everyone has a little bit different opinion. But like, what does the brand mean? You know what I mean? I especially think that the people that we're talking to within those first 6 and 12 months of their business are very hyper-focused on their brand, but they don't really understand what you're thinking about when your brand's not, like you said, your brand's not just your logo. It's all of those feelings and emotions that people have inside them whenever they interact with anything that it is that you put out there. So I'm just curious to you to kind of position the question of what is the value of a strong brand and what are the most important pieces of that, and then also beyond that, just kind of telling me your story. Hopefully you can tie those in together, that obviously at some point you started to, because I think that that's something that you have to kind of see for yourself. You know what I mean? Like you can learn it, but really when you see a strong brand and you kind of dive into their brand and you do like a brand audit, like that is what I've found. That's what really taught me the most kind of about branding and marketing in general. So I'm just curious from your perspective, what makes up the brand and what is most important, and then, kind of how that experience came to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you really kind of hit the nail right on the head. Like your brand is really every aspect of your business that your customers see and interact with. So that includes your logo, but like your logo is really just a visual identifier, right?
For
It's
sure.
something people can recognize and say, oh yeah, I've heard of them. All the other elements are really kind of what make your whole brand, and it's everything from your colors and your fonts to your communication style, the quality of the product you're putting out.
Oh yeah. I think that's a big one that people don't understand. Like a lot of branding is related to how good you actually do your job.
Yeah, it really is. And it can be hard to wrap your head around, but like really your brand is determined by your customers.
For sure.
Right? Because it's how they think of you and how they view your company. So all of the branding activities that you're doing are really to try to influence
create some form of a community,
Yeah. The real kind of test of branding is you want to be able to ask your customers to like define your brand in a couple of words. And if you're doing things right, the words that they use are going to match the words that you wanted them to use.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And it's challenging, you know what I mean? Like creating a brand it has a life cycle, you know what I mean? Like you can have the best meeting ever with you, and then, kind of what your idea of the brand and what people grab out of the brand and gravitate to is two completely different things, and we've seen those things change very quickly, even with large companies. You know what I mean? So tell me a story. Like, what is your background? How did you kind of get in? How did you begin to speak this language? I guess is really the way that I say it, because what you do, both graphically and like execution wise, like actually utilizing the things that you're able to create, is definitely learned behavior. So I'm curious.
Yeah, for sure. And I think print designers are a bit of a dying breed. But my whole background is in large format design and print design. I started out working in a sign shop, designing vehicle wraps and signage
Nice.
and stuff like that. And
Very satisfying.
yeah, and I really got a lot of hands-on education in that environment, which was great. I was using the printers, I was installing graphics, and having that background and that knowledge is really useful now, because I understand the materials being used, I understand the printing processes. So it allows me to really help my clients in a way that a lot of branding agencies don't focus on. A lot of times you do the design, you hand it off to your client, and then you're done.
Right.
I really prefer to work through the whole process with them, to make sure that they're getting the outcome that is the best for their brand. Because without that knowledge of materials and printing processes, it's really easy to go awry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially with all of the online companies now, you can order directly from them, which is great for consumers. But again, if you don't really know anything about the materials and the printing processes, you may not end up with what you were expecting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so I used to be part of in-house marketing teams for like bigger organizations. That was a lot of my design career before I decided to go out on my own.
That was your corporate world.
Yeah, and I really learned a lot about brand management working in those environments. And
Because it's like a combination, right? It's like, for larger firms, what I find that is so valuable to them is that they have kind of like a two-sided engine, maybe even more, because I've never done that, but they have not only the graphics side, like the actual content creation side, videography, whatever that may be, that's creating the content that is really, really strong. But you also have to have the people that are breaking down what to do with those resources to make them actually produce some sort of engagement or interaction, right? That is what I find, like people that have kind of come from that situation, is that they've kind of got to see both sides of the coin. Is that, exactly what you're talking about, is like, you're not the type to just give people graphics and then pat them on the butt and send them on their way and say, do with it what you wish. You would rather go through with that execution phase. I think that is what is so cool about those larger companies, is that you really get to see both sides of the coin. They're so focused on not only are the graphics aligned with our brand, but the execution is everything to them. We spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month making this content. We have to spend even more than that executing it well, which I think is very unique versus what you learn from a small business perspective.
yeah, definitely. But it's nice to be able to take that and apply it to
Yeah,
small
exactly.
businesses. And I get the struggle that small businesses deal with too, when it comes to brand management, because it's hard when you're using the same colors and the same fonts on everything you do day in and day out. It can get boring to you,
Yeah.
right? Because you're seeing it every single day. And so you have to remember that, like, your customers aren't
Yeah,
seeing,
you.
yeah, right. Like
They're not inside your business every single day.
yeah. So it can be really tempting, especially now with like application programs like Canva, that'll give you thousands of templates to choose from. And it's really easy to get that shiny object syndrome, and you're like, oh, this template looks great, let's use that. Oh, but it doesn't actually fit your brand at all. I've seen so many companies fall into that trap, because they just find a template they really like, and they don't actually think about the branding elements of it.
For sure.
They just are like, oh, this is pretty, we'll use this.
What do you find people that like as far as your clients go, like what are your clients? Like, what do they do? What industries are they in? Like, where do you feel that the biggest need for a strong brand is? Because honestly, I think there's companies that can get away with it, right? Like, we're a payment processing company. People don't know that there are more people that are my clients. I have hundreds of clients, and probably 50% of them can pick out our brand on a piece of paper, but 100% of them know Bailey. So, like, in the B2B world, I think that there's some, I guess, ability to kind of get away with straying a little bit from your brand. And then I think there's industries where it's where it's business suicide to stray from your brand. You know, so like where do you see in 2023 is like the biggest needs for sharp branding?
Yeah, definitely consumer facing products.
Product
which,
design, things like that.
Yeah, like product packaging. Actually, something like 60% of people will repurchase a product based on the appearance of the packaging.
Really?
Yeah. So like packaging design is very important.
Yeah. I just got a package yesterday actually from Amazon, and have you seen how they do their custom boxes now?
Mm-mm.
It's the first experience that I had, but they basically have a machine that like takes your product and it cuts a box to put your product in that's like the exact size so it wastes no cardboard.
Oh yeah, you know what?
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing.
I've been
because we've been sticking stuff in whatever box we have in those rooms and shipping them for a long pack of peanuts galore.
Right. Yeah, I actually just the reason I'm in Atlanta this week is for the Printing United Expo that's happening here, and I saw a vendor who is offering that exact service actually.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
I thought that was insane. That blew me away. So, but I also understand like we have some clients that are in the consumer products world, right? Because I've went through this podcasting with like product designers, you know, and they're like, yeah, I help people design products, and I'm like, well, introduce me to some of the people's products that you've designed that are fresh to market, and I want to do the podcast with them as well. And you would be amazed at like sometimes more thought goes into the packaging and the experience of opening it than even if it's a cheap product. You know what I mean? Like not cheap, but I guess an inexpensive product. You could be low average ticket, and the experience of actually opening that package is so important that I could see that creates a lot of recurring business for people.
Right.
For
Yeah,
sure.
and people love an unboxing video too.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's such a big thing now.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen a lot of that
yeah.
in the YouTube world for sure. Well, that's really neat. Well, tell me this. Obviously, you've developed a lot of skills both working in the corporate environment and then working in the small business environment. You know, you speak a very unique language as far as branding and graphic design goes, and then you kind of had to relearn the dialect of small business, right? So tell me, like, what skill did you have early on when you decided to kind of jump all in on your own business? Did you feel was most important, you know, the biggest factor to your growth? On the flip side of that, what was really hard? Like, what was your biggest weakness? If you could go back and give yourself a skill that you have today, or maybe you haven't even developed it yet, that skill on day one, what would you give people that reference to and say, hey, if you can practice this before you cut ties with whatever it is that you're doing to start your own business, it would be time well spent?
Yeah, so the skills I already had were the design skills, which like that's
Right.
crucial to my business and what I do. I think the thing that I'm still learning is the sales aspect and learning how my customers actually talk about the services that I offer, because, you know, like you said, I speak branding and I speak design, but the people who I'm serving don't. So figuring out the language that they use to talk about the services that I offer and learning how to sell myself and my services. It's not something I ever had to do before starting my own business. It's definitely still a skill I am learning.
For sure. So, how long have you been out on your own? How long have you had your own business?
3 years.
3 years. Oh yeah, skills. Yeah, I've been doing this for sales for 7 years, and I'm still learning. So
Yeah.
it's something that never stops. Tell me, like, as far as, let me think of how exactly I want to word this question. So the technical side of your skills, right? The ability to execute graphically, to understand the branding and speak that language, and then you transition into your own business day one. Were you seeking out clients that their brands were not strong, or were people finding you because of how you were able to market? Because that's something that I always find very unique, right? Like, this is the B2B conundrum, right? Is that we often get blasted by emails and phone calls of people that tell you, hey, I have this really, really awesome tool for marketing. Well, that is a little bit of a paradox to me because you're like cold phone calling me to tell you that you have like this amazing lead generation system, you know? So like, I guess my question is after you know what you know technically, right? Like how do you begin to develop that sales process?
Yeah, I do a lot of networking.
Oh, nice.
Which I started my business in 2020,
Nice.
which was a
What an
challenge,
awesome time.
right? I know
Yeah.
it worked out perfectly.
Us B2Bers, we swam. I feel like a lot of the B2B people I know, we swam because people knew that there was work that needed to be done on their business. you know,
Yeah.
which is strange.
Yeah,
Because
it is a little strange.
knowing
Yeah,
what we know about business is like people are spending more money now than ever. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
while things are good and you're busy is probably where you should be pouring the gas. But then like, you know, the well dried up and people are like, oh, we have things to do, which was crazy. I mean, at least that was kind of our experience.
yeah. It was a difficult time to start because I couldn't go out and do like in-person networking at all. So it took a little while to like start getting my name out there. I relied on social media a lot. And now really like I do get most of my business through word of mouth marketing.
Nice.
I think really it's because I'm so focused on the design aspect. Generally, you know, if you go and look at my website, you're going to get a really good feel for the type of design
Right.
work that I do. And so if the work on my
Once
site,
you've made it that far,
yeah,
kind
like
of a high probability of doing business with some of the people that are checking it out that far.
yeah, exactly. Like if you land on my site and you like the work that's there,
For sure.
then that's
You've
really
made it this far, you know?
yeah.
Tell me this, what's your biggest networking hub down there in Savannah? By the way, we just had a discussion on the podcast the other day about how Savannah is the perfect city.
Yeah.
Like, logistically. You can drive so well. Oh, man. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It's easy to get around, which is nice.
Oh,
Like
so
you can
nice.
basically get all the way across town in
I
like
have-
20 minutes.
I have never been anywhere like it. It is so satisfying.
Yeah.
The grid system is great. And Atlanta is the opposite.
Yeah.
Atlanta is the roadblock system. Atlanta is the traffic system.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's bad.
Yeah.
But tell me, who are you networking out with, networking with out there in Savannah?
So I go to a lot of chamber events.
Nice.
Yeah.
They have a strong chamber?
They do.
I would
yeah.
imagine that they do. I guess that's a good kind of retail and small business environment there. It's probably very important for you to represent yourself in the chamber.
Yeah, and then we also have a chapter of Rising Tide Society in
Oh, I'm very
Savannah,
familiar,
which
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you must know Tara Mittler. Is her last name?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's different like franchises, I guess, but
Mhm.
she owns up here in Atlanta. She goes pretty hard for Rising Tides. That's cool though. I mean, it's similar to like BNI, right? Closed seat networking type of thing, or
Yeah. Well, Rising Tide Society doesn't charge anything, so it's a free organization. Anyone can go to their meetings. But they are focused on like kind of the creative fields.
oh, nice.
You know, the whole idea is rising tide raises all
All
ships.
ships.
So
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, she's got. That's what the lady I was just talking about does. She has a design agency as well, so that's really cool. That's cool. And so they bring you a lot of business.
I don't, honestly, the jury's still out on that. But they're great for just at least spreading my name out into the world.
And I imagine you've probably learned some stuff from those people, gotten some feedback, or seen some things that they do within their business and kind of learned from those. I do that a lot. So.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it's always just good to meet other business owners.
For sure.
Especially, like I work out of my home office. So it's nice to be able to go out and actually talk to other
Yeah.
people who are, also running a business and deal with similar struggles.
Let me ask you this. Because I know that there's some people kind of in your similar field watching this, right? I think a lot of people gravitate toward people in the industry that they want to be too, or students that know that they're going to have to either find that corporate position or go out on their own at some point with those same set of skills. What do you think is a healthy mixture for you, percentages wise, of like working on your business versus working in your business? Like how much time do you spend like graphic designing in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever it is that you may use versus networking, doing sales, invoicing people, whatever those in your, on your business tasks may be?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and it's something that I really struggle with, and I think a lot of small business owners struggle with, is finding that balance because client work always takes a priority, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
finding the time to work on your business it can be a challenge. I try to set aside 20 to 30 hours a week for design time. And then,
It's probably what it just has to be, right?
yeah,
And then probably trying to balance and make the most out of the rest of that time.
yeah, exactly.
For sure. For
Like
sure.
I
I can
have
see
a
that.
ton of ideas for my business that I haven't like gotten implemented yet because I keep prioritizing client work because that's what's paying the
For
bills,
sure.
right?
What's the next step for you though? What's your next goal? Are you bringing somebody on the technical side so that you can network more? You bringing on a salesperson? What is like everything goes perfectly? Rest of the year, January 1, you're blowing goals out the wazoo. Like what is the next step for you? How do you see it growing in the future? I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Bringing on some help next year is going to be one of my top priorities. But I also have several like new services that I want to get launched.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Bunch of learning involved in those services, or have you already conquered the learning part?
yeah. No, it's not the learning part. It's just figuring out the pricing structure and then implementing it on my website and all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to be adding on some brand management services to help out small
Execution
business
style
owners.
services.
Yeah, because what I've noticed after working with small businesses for a couple of years is that even though I offer implementation services with my design services already, there still is a bit of a gap. Like if I do a visual brand identity for someone and I give them all of their assets, they don't really know how to use those assets
sure.
properly. Even with the brand guidelines book, like that's such surface level that if you don't have a background in design or marketing, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I have all this stuff. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
And especially, a lot of small business owners are doing their own social media graphics and that kind of stuff. And
Notice
so,
that with Canva.
yeah. And so learning how to properly use all those assets is really beneficial for them. And so that's part of what I'm going to be bringing on next year is some more services to help people learn to become their own brand manager, essentially.
Yep. Yep. I love that. I subscribe to the. I would rather teach you to fish, than give you a fish once a month. It'd be 20 hours of work for me, and I get that. Look, I'm excited about where you're going in your business. It's really, really cool. Obviously, you have a great knack for the creative side of things, and hopefully we can be an asset to you on the sales and working on your business and all of those things because we network a lot too. I know there are probably some awesome opportunities that we can at least clue you in on some of the things that we do and bring some value to you there. So I'm really excited for you as far as where you go and being an asset to that because I haven't had someone do the podcast with me from as far away as you're from. I know it worked out logistically, but to set aside the time while you're up here in Atlanta is awesome, and I really do appreciate it. The way that we always end the podcast is kind of an ode to our name, right? Burn the ship. So Hernan Cortez lands in Central America. He tells his men, take all of your supplies off of the ship and then burn all the ships. Right? His demonstration was that we either figure it out here or we die. That was the stakes for them. And I think we draw a similar parallel to business, obviously without exactly equal stakes, but there comes a moment in everybody's business where it's like a light switch that you decide, okay, I really need to figure this out now. Like I'm an entrepreneur and I have to decide how I'm going to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish, right? I'm burning the ship. I'm going all in on my business. And the people that are watching, I'm telling you right now, they can relate to your skills and they can relate to your story and they can relate to your weaknesses, but there's a lot of those people that can't quite relate to what it feels like to go all in on their business yet. So what does it feel like? What is that experience like? What are the emotions that are involved with it? And what type of gratification do you get out of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Oh, that's a lot to unpack. It's very It's very up and down, to be honest. Like, it's so much more rewarding than, doing work for someone else. One of the main reasons why I decided to focus on small businesses is because when I was working for these bigger companies, I felt like I wasn't really making an impact in the world at all.
Sure.
And so focusing on helping small businesses create the brand of their dreams, I'm helping other people reach their goals, and it's really rewarding in that aspect. But it's also very stressful. Especially right now, I'm still a solopreneur at the moment. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be looking at bringing on some help next year, but it's a lot to manage. It's a lot to do when you're the one responsible for every aspect of your business.
Oh, yeah. And as you grow, it just grows into more responsibility, and it just becomes uber more important to find that, that family of people that help you with those things.
For sure. And it's so important. Like, something I've really learned over the last few years is figuring out which parts of running the business I really enjoy and which parts of it I want to hand off to somebody else. And that's a really important, just like personal growth aspect that comes from running a business, is you have to figure that out, because you can't do everything. So you've got to figure out which parts you really enjoy doing, and then be willing to let the rest go, and, bring on other people who actually enjoy doing those parts.
Yeah. There are people.
Yes.
No matter what that role is, there are people that enjoy it. I agree, man. The entrepreneur gratification is like nothing else. And I've said this a bunch of times on the podcast before, but if you can find a way to be happy and feel fulfilled and valuable without all of the risk and ups and downs and emotional roller coaster that comes with being an entrepreneur, do that, because it is much easier. But if you have that that itch that you just can't scratch, that is going to end with you owning your own business, there are great people like you and I that you can lean on to help resolve a bunch of the growing pains that you experience as an entrepreneur early. Hopefully this podcast has been an asset to that as well, because it's not easy. There's nothing about small business that is easy, and there's nothing about small business that is given to you for free. You have to earn it all. So that's what we're doing here today. So I appreciate you coming very much.
Yeah,
it means
thanks
a lot
so much
to
for
me.
having me.
Yeah, I'll work on this over a couple of weeks, and we'll put it out there into the world.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate you coming. It means a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, burn the ship. Nice. We're right on schedule, right at 30 minutes.